Sunday night primetime, the Jacobson Report, the first leg on our 90-minute block. We're going to be looking at the presidential election with both Republican and Democrat strategist John Jacobson here in studio with Sean Torres on a beautiful Sunday night on KOFO 1220 103.7 and streaming live on KOFO.com. Sponsored by Midwest Renewable Energy, LLC. Renewable fuels, ethanol, emanating from the great eastern Nebraska. It's lean, it's clean, and it's green. Jim and Cindy Jandrin, so inspiring with that enterprise. And we're also sponsored by LifeRunners.org. Life Runners, protecting life from womb to tomb and helping expectant mothers along the way. Let's get ready to roll. What a beautiful autumnal Sunday evening here on Prime Time Sunday night. John Jacobson here on KOFO, the home and away voice of our Kansas City Royals. And boy, what an exciting time of year. The Royals and the Chiefs both playing tomorrow night on Monday simultaneously. KOFO will be there with a live remote from Ottawa at Primetime Grill Infusion Alley on Monday evening at 5. Guys, we are getting so close to the elections. I will be anchoring election night coverage live for Brad Howard and the crew here. We will be on, of course, 1220 and 103.7, and you can listen to us live on KOFO.com. We have back our most excellent political prognosticators, the brother and sister political consulting team of Christopher X. Kip Murphy and his sister Sheila Murphy. All they do is win, as Al Davis would say when he was at the Oakland Raiders, and they have consulted on everything from the most local of municipal and county and state house races all the way up to presidential campaigns. Welcome back to the show, Sheila and Kip.
Hi, John.
Hey, John.
Kansas City says, hey, back to you, as well as Topeka and Lawrence and Olathe and, most importantly, Ottawa and all of our environs here. So we had a vice presidential debate Tuesday. Sheila Murphy, I thought you had the greatest take on the debate and analyzing the performance by Vice President Vance and your overall macro view. I think a lot of people lost the strategy and the clutter. You knew what was going on. Tell us what the game plan was and how well it was executed by J.D. Vance.
I think that J.D. Vance is fully aware of how he is being vilified on social media by the so-called national media, especially young women are being told that he's a knuckle-dragger, he's a misogynist, a chauvinist, unreasonable, wacko, weirdo, as Tim Walz has called him. So I don't think J.D. Vance entered into this debate to make policy points. I think he realized that people that tune into that probably know where he stands and where Trump stands and where Harrison Walz stands. This was his chance to reshape that image, to present himself as he really is, which is actually quite a reasonable, intelligent, kind, diplomatic gentleman. That was his goal. He accomplished his goal beautifully.
I agree. It wasn't about leaving debate points on the table, which theoretically he might have done. It was about countering the image of the demonization that the mainstream media had put forth as the narrative. I think he successfully blunted that and came off as the hardscrabble young man who overcame so many odds. If you read his Hillbilly Elegy and read about his life, just incredible odds that he has overcome. And he's turned into quite the philosopher, theologian along the way, a very moral, decent Christian man. And I think he came off as eminently likable. And frankly, Kip, were you astonished that when they did the post-debate poll, even the corrupt organizations CBS and CNN, their own polls had Vance beating Walz?
Well, I didn't think it would be that hard for Vance to win because he obviously won the debate. If any, unless they're a far-left person like Rachel Maddow, thought Vance won. And he accomplished what Sheila wanted, but he also accomplished something else. And if you look through the entire debate, he kept bringing it back that Harris has been in office for almost 4 years now, and she hasn't accomplished anything. And what the administration has done has been a total disaster for the country. Not for the country, for the world also.
We'll get,
They've turned the entire planet into a dumpster fire. When you look at the Middle East, Ukraine, they epitomize weakness. And when America's weak, the world is in trouble.
Well, what's very interesting, Kip, is you merge into a very interesting factoid there. One thing that supposedly is troubling the Harris campaign very much is that only 28% of Americans polled say the country is moving in the right direction. When that polling indicia historically has been run and the confidence level in the direction of the country is that low, normally the incumbent has lost. And I understand that Team Harris is very worried about that. Kip, can they overcome that? I think they do have a problem despite the media fanboys.
They can overcome it by, as they said in the past, as I said what they did in 2020, they stole that election fair and square.
Now, we are having some Democrats on the other side of the program here who will get equal time. But, here's the fascinating thing, Kip and Sheila, and I'd like to turn to Sheila about this. Sheila, I served in the Iowa legislature. We know pro-life is a very contentious issue. People have very strong feelings on the life issue. And if you take the polling, I'm not talking about where people are ideologically or philosophically. If you look at the polling on the issue, obviously you don't have a strong majority of people that want to ban abortion in all circumstances. However, you also have a very large majority that do not want late-term abortions, especially late-term abortions, and polling has always shown a revulsion against that. Tim Walz basically deflected, but the fact is that his Minnesota law, does not do anything to require physicians to try to save the life of an infant that survives an abortion. Basically, he's flirting with what we call literally infanticide, and I think that is so beyond the pale. I think he damaged himself terribly with that stance. Sheila, tell me I'm wrong.
Can't tell you wrong, John, because you're absolutely correct. And I think he tried to appear that was not his position, but he wasn't very successful. And Minnesota has such a reputation for extreme liberalness in this issue that I don't think there was much he could do. And I think that the Republicans have to key in more, even more aggressively, on the state-by-state decision principle. I think they have to remind the Democrats that we are a confederation of states to make issues and the will of the people closer to government and government closer to people. And this is one of those issues that should be decided in close consort with the people. And the only way to do that is state by state. And I think that when the Democrats start talking about we want a national standard of all abortion being legal or something like that, say no. You're trying to disallow the will of the people, and we want you to listen.
John Jacobson here with Kip and Sheila Murphy. Our last question. Guys, I am hearing things that literally are making me beat my breast. This Hurricane Helene tragedy, we are not being told the gravity of the carnage of corpses littered, floating in streams and ponds. We could have thousands upon thousands of deaths, and not only has there been severe criticism, Tommy Tuberville, the Alabama senator, basically has used the word treason to talk about how our government has been protecting illegals over our own citizens with some of these resources, and we're hearing reports of aid not only not getting distributed to people, but sometimes restricted by the government. And this is chilling, and you'd hate to think it was malicious, but even if it's mere incompetence, is still terribly chilling. Will this be the nail in the coffin of the Harris campaign, much as Katrina damaged W. Bush so much in his midterms?
I believe it can, and news media covers it. But if you look at the...
They won't, but Elon Musk is all over X. The word is getting out through X.
Oh, I agree. And but this entire administration, like whatever Mayorkas touches, he destroys. He's one of the worst cabinet members who have come along in our entire history. I do believe.
Yeah, he should have been impeached some time ago, I think. But continue.
And this entire administration was slow to get moving on this disaster. They were slow in getting FEMA involved. And now they just finally told the U.S. military that they can go out and help. Finally, after a week.
Sheila,
the U.S. military should have been given the go-ahead to do whatever they could to help disaster victims right away.
Yeah, Kip Murphy, I agree. Sheila Murphy, there's a meme going around that's devastating. It shows a map of the eastern seaboard, and written over North Carolina is U-K-R-A-I-N-E. Ukraine has replaced North Carolina as the name of the state, and it said if the map looked like this, North Carolina would get aid much more quickly. How devastating is that?
Absolutely. And yet this isn't completely new. I have to say that for 20 years or more, I've been hearing little rumors, rumblings, people saying, there's no denying that aid comes more quickly to clearly Democrat voting areas. That is killing itself. And I think, what is this? The proof is in the pudding. I think that our incompetent federal government sees this as it sees everything, as a political issue and a political opportunity. And I think that they're not even breaking a sweat on this. But I think they're very confident. They have all the confidence in the world, as Kip said, because they have the protection of the media. But let's hope that the word through people like Elon Musk is leaking out and they won't have that protection, because this is one of the most unconscionable things I have ever witnessed in my entire life.
I agree. It's the most chillingly horrifying thing that I've ever seen in my lifetime, and I've been outraged about a lot of different scandals. Sheila Murphy and Kip Murphy with us. 20 seconds. If the election's held today, who wins the Electoral College? Kip and Sheila, give me an answer.
I believe Trump wins, and I think it's going to be a little bigger than people think.
Sheila?
I do too. Just lately, I have been even greater open support for Trump. A lot of people have supported him in secrecy, but people have had it. I think the rumors that are going around about FEMA have just kind of pushed people over the edge. J.D. Vance's performance has helped, and I think now it's starting to erupt. If it were held today, if it were a fair election, Trump would win.
And Jake says, with over 300 electoral votes. John Jacobson here, thanking Sheila Murphy and Kip Murphy. All they do is win. And I know one candidate who you helped who's retired undefeated. What a deal.
Yes. John, we work for you again.
Hey.
It was a great experience.
Some of my co-ed students want the white caps with the red trim. They don't like the red caps. So, hey, we got to get some white caps made for my co-ed students.
All right, we'll be looking at a cap order for you.
Kip and Sheila Murphy. Sean Torres, our engineer par excellence. Sean Torres here at KOFO on a beautiful Sunday night. 90-degree temperatures in October yesterday on Saturday, Sean, but starting to cool down. That'll be room temperature by Monday. We'll be back in just a jiff. Thanks to the Murphs, and they'll have them back right before the election. Stay tuned.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Bye-bye, guys. Thank you for joining us tonight for Segment 1. Segment 2 coming up. The Jacobson Report, the anchor leg here on Sunday Night Primetime on KOFO 1220 103.7 and streaming live on KOFO.com. Sponsored by Jim and Sydney Jandrin and their inspiring work, both at Midwest Renewable Energy LLC, ethanol renewable fuel for the Midwest, emanating from eastern Nebraska. Energy from a strong America is lean, it's clean, and it's green. And LifeRunners.org. LifeRunners.org, protecting life from womb to tomb and helping expectant mothers along the way by walking and running for life. Get your t-shirts online. John Jacobson back with you. Guys, Pete McRoberts rejoins us to the strands of Henry Mancini and Decision 76. Pete, high-level Democrat consultant, and he has literally consulted from presidents down to U.S. senators, U.S. House members, governors, state legislators, mayors, city council, county commissioners. Pete McRoberts, J.D., a fellow barrister, and all around. He's my brother from another mother, even though we technically are on opposite sides of the aisle. Although, Pete, I am a registered independent these days. And, Pete, first of all, tease this idea that you and I are concocting right now for some program.
All right. Sure will, John. Well, first of all, thank you for the introduction. And I want to give your listeners full disclosure in that all of this consulting you talked about tended to be more like making sure we obeyed all the traffic signs over the years. But thank you for your kind words. So what we're cooking up, John, for your listeners, we are going to do a show in advance of the election where we let it all hang out, and then we're going to lock it, and then we're going to broadcast it after the election. We're calling this the time capsule.
Yes.
And all bets are off. This is predictions. This is what's the lay of the land. This is everything that we wanted to say before an election, but we're not going to say publicly because we don't want to do harm to our candidates.
Yes, but you and I each might have a few glancing blow criticisms of our own respective party leaderships, potentially.
We may, and I want to preface that by saying, obviously, even though we both do our best to be as nonpartisan as we can on here, you've got a pretty good idea who I'm going to vote for president, even though in Iowa it doesn't seem like it'll make much of a difference. And I like what I see with that campaign, but as you and I both know that we've dealt with a lot of people over the years, none of whose names are on the ballot, and let's have a little fun and plant our flag and own whatever it is we say in full view, in full listening mode for anyone who wants to hear it.
It'll be great. It's like Jerry Ford's ruminations. Tell that great story about Jerry Ford that we were talking about the other day.
Okay, so for people who like to read political news, there's a great journalist named Tom DeFrank, and he was covering Vice President Ford on Air Force Two, which at that time was not what it is now. And he was sitting with Ford on the plane, and Ford blurted out accidentally something like, well, when I become president, right? So Ford saw the writing on the wall. And DeFrank asks him, wait, will you repeat that? And Ford leaned over and grabbed him by his tie and said, you will not write that down. Write it when I'm gone. And so for the next 30 years, DeFrank and Ford would do these interviews specifically designed for DeFrank to put them out publicly once Ford passed away, and he did. And it's a wonderful book. And I happen to be lucky enough to know Karen Spencer, whose dad ran the Ford campaign.
The great Stuart Spencer, yes.
Great Stuart Spencer, yep. And his daughter Karen is a PhD, ran a bunch of California campaigns, and they're wonderful people, and they're very close to the Fords, the Cheneys, the kind of old school Republicans. And she was the one who advised me of this Tom DeFrank book, and it's great. So if you're a political junkie, go find it on Amazon. You'll be able to get it on paperback for next to nothing. But it's called Write It When I'm Gone. And it is absolutely candid, and that's the model we're going to use, except we're not going anywhere. We're going to be alive there to either eat crow or eat lobster.
Lord willing, yes. If Sean Torres can lock it in the digital zone, and he's really good. He's quite the engineer. And Pete, you're very good with polling and analytics. And let's talk about two things here. Let's go back almost a week ago to Tuesday's vice presidential debate as one on the Democrat side of the aisle. How do you rank performances, so to speak, of the respective candidates, Walz and Vance? I would just say at the outset, everything is relative, as Einstein might say, but a relatively civil debate.
Yeah, and I, as much as I like that in terms of, for the good of the country, those aren't the things that influence voters. I listened to one interesting commentator, I think it was Mike Murphy, who had said that the perception of voters afterward was relief, which is really interesting. And by all accounts,
what did he mean by that? I know Mike Murphy's been in the game for a long time, usually for Republicans. What do you think he meant by that?
Well, so if you look at the past debates or the past, just frankly, political communication, it's hot. It's real hot.
Yeah.
And I read that as saying, people are looking for a break.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting thing. I mean, the former president has been insistent that there ain't going to be a debate, and I think it's because he might have gotten the memo that the more he opens his mouth, the less people like him. And the relief that somebody like Murphy is talking about, polls indicate this. I mean, it's just a dead split as to who won the debate. I mean, we can argue and
basically,
talk about...
basically it was a 50-50, much like we are a divided nation in terms of the electorate. Basically, we're a 50-50, and really, in a sense, have been since the 2000 election, in my mind.
Sure. And, I mean, the thing that I'm interested in your thoughts is... and we'll talk about if the election were held today, what it would look like. But I'm intrigued at the reasoning why Vance didn't go out of his way to associate Harris with Biden. I mean, they're looking at stuff that we don't see, and their campaign has been so hostile that I don't think that's an accident. And I would like to dig into what that reasoning is.
John Jacobson here with Democratic strategist and now great lobbyist for the common good, for some wonderful public policy in Iowa.
Thank you.
Pete McRoberts. So, Pete, I'm one of these, I like to think I'm in the middle of the fairway. I'm not a climate alarmist. I don't think we can control the weather that much from that end, but I also am not a climate alarmist thinking that Democrats seeded the clouds and did weather modification to cause this hurricane. But I remember, to my chagrin, how devastating the fallout from Katrina was for W in his midterms. Mm-hmm. Could this horrific, I mean, these are just horrific accounts coming in from this unprecedented hurricane that hit many areas, but North Carolina with just terrible severity. Could this hurt and take some of the wind out of the sails of a Harris campaign as this unfolds with response times and tales of travail and woe and death?
Well, this is one of the things that, I mean, these are called acts of God for a reason. These are things that governments can't predict, politicals can't predict, and sometimes they're only reactive. I would go a little more granular there, and the thing, and I'm not making a political statement here, not a bit.
Well, you're welcome to if you want. We're a free speech zone here, baby. AM radio is the last free speech zone in America.
Yeah.
Unless you're rich enough like Elon to buy a big media company. But go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, if you can lose $70 billion, be my guest, or whatever it is. The thing that I would be looking at in Georgia and North Carolina, of course, I can't say apart from human suffering, because you can't take that away. And you and I both remember that from when Cedar Rapids and the state of Iowa had our version of our natural disasters and tornadoes and floods.
And my flooding in 2018 over there on the western side of the state, where nobody heard about until I started screaming and kicking. Go ahead, Pete.
And that's the stuff that people, can sometimes never recover from. And if they do, their life has changed permanently, and the infrastructure's changed permanently. Yeah. And if you look at so just based on the geography of the storm damage right now in Georgia and North Carolina, there's the Asheville area in North Carolina, which was heavily dim, and that's a densely populated area, and those lights are going to come, and I say this figuratively, they're already back on, but those lights come on faster.
And you know the area, by the way, you spent a lot of time in South Carolina in 2016 helping the president, so you know the geographic terrain, so continue.
Yep, and same with Georgia. You go to Southwest Georgia, it's rural areas. These are areas that the lights aren't going to come back on as fast, and there's going to be, the question is, what do we do when the hot dishes stop coming? And that's the wild card, just on the politics of it. So Atlanta is going to be fine in Georgia. Those come back, but the damage in the rural areas. I mean, look, if you're on day 21 of needing to go to the food pantry to make sure that you get your canned food, and you don't have regular access, or there's towns that are wiped out, are you going to vote? And so I don't necessarily see blowback. I mean, just the fact is the election is 30 days from today. My concern would be, when your life is on the line, when your livelihood is on the line, how high up on the list is turning out to vote? And what, in Georgia, early voting starts today.
I know.
It's 30 days before the election. Yep. And so I'm not making a political prognostication about how that works, but I did look at every county's turnout from 20.
Yep.
And you get to southwestern Georgia, where Biden picked up thousands of votes.
Yep.
One county at a time where he won by 500 votes,
Yep.
one by 1,000 votes. Now the distinction that I would add is the movement of people into North Carolina and to Georgia is a little bit of an unknown.
Sure.
There's 250,000 new voters in Georgia.
Wow.
Adult professionals who've moved in since 2020.
Yeah.
About 200,000 in North Carolina. And so this is where, all the modeling in the world can make an educated guess about what these people are going to do.
Sure.
But in some respects, we're always using the previous elections model to anticipate what people will do. But in the densely populated areas, which is where Harris needs to perform, those are the areas that they're going to recover faster.
Yep, exactly.
So it's
so you're
it's a
saying
human tragedy.
maybe advantage Harris, that the storm may actually advantage Harris a little bit in terms of the voting.
In terms of people being able to get back to a semblance of normality after a storm like this, you're looking at the densely populated areas where Biden overperformed in 2020 in both North Carolina and Georgia.
That's why we have you on, Pete. You have just great in-depth analytics. Pete, final outro question. I got 30 seconds. If the election are held today, who wins the Electoral College?
If the election are held today, Trump wins with 274 to Harris 264.
Really? That's a shift for you.
Yep.
Oh, I can't wait till next week when we talk more. Pete McRoberts, my brother from another brother. I'll give you one last word here, Pete.
One last word. If you remove every state where the difference is less than 1%, it's 239 Democrats, 231 Republicans, and 68 electoral votes in the playpen.
Holy cow. This is going down to the razor's edge. Well, Pete McRoberts, we'll call up Pete McRoberts on election night to get his live take. We've got ABC on for national news, but Pete will be able to weigh in on some regional contests. Pete's looking at that Nebraska Senate race, some stuff in Kansas. I think incumbent Charisse pretty well. So we'll get a whole panoply of things, Pete McRoberts.
Darn right we will. Can't wait.
All right, guys, Pete McRoberts with us. Thanks for joining us. We'll have Pete back on next week. You're listening to Sunday Night Primetime, The Jacobson Report, and we'll be back in just a minute on 1220, 1037, and streaming live on KOFO.com. John Jacobson with the great Sean Torres at the engineering deck. Always a joy on a sweltering weekend, cooling a little bit right now, and tomorrow it'll be room temperature outdoors with beautiful sunny skies as our Kansas City Royals and Chiefs play simultaneously. We are the home and away voice of the Kansas City Royals. Your ALDS playoff game against the Yankees will be pre-gaming it with a live remote from Primetime Grill in Fusion Alley. Listen to us at 5 p.m. In the meantime, this is John Jacobson thanking Jim and Cindy Jandren and Life Runners in Midwest Renewable Energy LLC. Sean Torres, my great engineer, saying until we meet again, be safe, be smart, be good, be strong, love Jesus Christ, and God bless us, everyone. Bye-bye.